The Find GL Transaction feature is located underneath the General Ledger module, and it is called Find GL Transactions. This powerful feature allows you to search your General Ledger transaction file, which includes all the debits and credits in your General Ledger system, by various different fields. And you can see the fields right on your screen here: account number, department, date, and so forth. For the most part, all of these are self-explanatory. There are a couple of items worth mentioning. For example, code. A code is going to apply to many different things depending upon where the transaction originated. If you look on the bottom of the screen, it says vendor code, customer code, employee code, product code, GL reference, and etc. These are different codes that you can put in for journal transactions that are related to a particular customer or employee code. If you know a customer code, you can type it in and do a search, and it'll pull up that customer. Looking at the transaction number, this relates to an invoice number or general ledger number, accounts payable invoice number, a check number, and so forth. These have drop-down boxes which you can also look at. However, they look at the whole transaction file, so we don't recommend using them unless you have a small transaction file or unless you really want to see and you have a little time on your hands. The account number, however, does not point to the transaction file. It points to the General Ledger chart of accounts, so that's very, very snappy, as does the department. That also looks at the department file. Moving over to description, it's worth mentioning that description is unique in that you do not need an exact match. On any of the other fields, you do need an exact match. In this case, for description, if we just want to see any General Ledger transactions that have the word swing line in them, we could just type in swing line, and we can click find, and the system will go through and look for any descriptions that contain the word swing line. That can be a very, very flexible feature, especially if you're coding your entries or coding your data a certain way, and you know that you can do this. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It will only search on the fields that you have entries in. So if you no longer want to use the description field as a criteria, you can delete it. If you decide that you want to look for a certain amount, let's say we're looking for $100, you can go ahead and select $100, and let's just go ahead and look at that and see what comes up. Okay, so we have several items here, but let's say it brought up a really lot and you wanted to narrow it down more. What you could do is you could combine different different criteria. And so let's say, for example, we know it was a cash receipt. We can go ahead and click this drop down box and we can select cash receipt, and then we can go ahead and click find. And now, instead of bringing up all of those entries we had before, now it only brings up 2 entries because we're narrowing our search. Now we can narrow it either further, and we can say, well, we only want to see those entries that were credit entries. So we can click credit, and we can go ahead and say find, and then you can see that it narrowed it down to the 1 record, and so forth. So we can combine as many of these as we want, and when we want to broaden the search, we can just go ahead and remove any entries simply by deleting them from the box, and then we can do our search, and then pulls up all of the entries that we had before. One thing worth mentioning is, while you have that screen up, you could always export it to Word or Excel simply by choosing the File menu and going over to the Office links and then telling it to go to Word or Excel. You could also cut and paste and copy and paste it into any other program, just like you would any Windows application, just with the edit, copy, and the edit paste features. You could also do filters and sorts and whatnot. So this concludes the Find GL transaction feature.